All right, so let's all just take a deep breath. Feel better? Yeah. Do you know why? We all have this thing called a breathing pacemaker. Did you know that? You've heard of a heart pacemaker, right? We have a breathing pacemaker. They discovered this at Stanford University in 2017. And that had been discovered in mice about 25 years ago, and they thought that they would find it in human beings, and they finally did after 25 years. And what they have found is a cluster of about 3,000 neurons in the brain that controls breathing. And basically what they found when they isolate these and pull some little groups of them out is that some of them stimulate breathing, some of them calm breathing. Well, we've known this for a long time, haven't we? That our breath changes and we feel differently when it changes. And if you've experienced childbirth or been around childbirth or watched a movie where somebody was having a child, you may have seen the breathing that they do to move through the contractions, right? That panting almost that they do. And then if you've been in yoga or meditation, you've probably had the slow your breath and take it deeper, right? And there's a calming effect that happens with that. And you're stimulating that breathing pacemaker when that happens. And we now have the science telling us and validating, verifying, if you will, that this is so. And it's a powerful spiritual and scientific principle now that we can use in influencing our states of mind, to influence our states of mind. Spiritually, we are told that about the breath being the breath of God. You've probably heard that, right? The breath of God. And in Genesis 2:7, it said, "And God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." Breathed into humans the breath of life. Breath and breathing are vital to our aliveness, aren't they? We're not breathing, we're not here, right? Yeah. So our theme this month is called Mindfulness for Mavericks. And when I first saw that, I thought it was kind of fun because if you think about New Thought is sort of a maverick spirituality from traditional Christianity and so forth. So mindfulness for mavericks sounded really appropriate for us. And what I want to do this month is look at combining the spiritual practice of mindfulness with our powerful practice of affirmative prayer. Putting those two things together to experience a more harmonious life. So that's what we're going to be doing this month. Author and mindfulness teacher Ora Nadrich says, being of your own mind and acting on it lets you call the shots for how you want to live your life. And if you can couple that type of thinking with mindfulness, there's no telling what you can do or how far you can go. So that sounds like the pairing of our Science of Mind treatments with mindfulness, doesn't it? It sounds like the pairing of that. So today my talk is just breathe. How many times have we heard that? Just breathe, it'll be all right. Just breathe, you'll be fine, right? And now that we know the science behind breathing, we can add another layer of understanding to our spiritual practices. I have to tell you that as I contemplated the series and the talk this month about breath and breathing, particularly this week's talk, I couldn't help but draw some analogies to the breath and what we're seeing reflected in consciousness right now in our world. I drew some analogies there. COVID-19 attacks the breath. It attacks the respiratory system, doesn't it? And then recently we've seen the death of George Floyd by asphyxiation. The consciousness of the breath actually being restricted or cut off. What is the metaphysical interpretation? I had to elevate those things out of the sea of information that we're receiving and elevate that to the spiritual and go, what is the metaphysical interpretation? How are we not breathing? How are we not breathing? Well, if you remember when we first got the home shelter orders, what was the first thing that we all noticed and was all over the news? Air pollution was cleaning up, wasn't it? The skies were blue, the air was clear. Wow. Wow. So for the human perspective, I had to turn to Louise Hay and her beautiful book, You Can Heal Your Life. And in it, she says, breath represents the ability to take in life. Breathing problems indicate a fear or refusal to take life in fully, not feeling the right to take up space or even exist. Wow. Even before the pandemic, I don't know about you, but it felt like life was very full. And we have this fast-paced environment that we deal with. There's always something coming at us. We've got so much connectivity in our phones and our internet and our news and people giving us information and everything that's coming at us so much. And a lot of it's negative, isn't it? A lot of it's negative. I had someone that I have a lot of respect for tell me this week, I choose happiness and joy in my life, and watching the news, social media, and violent shows does not support me in that choice. So I don't participate in any of it, and I'm happy. And I'm happy, with a genuine smile. And I sat with that for a bit. Because I've shared with you before that I've been more immersed in the news in the last 2 months than I have in the last 10 years probably, just to keep up with what's going on, to be a responsible leader in our community and my real estate properties and those sorts of things, feeling like I needed to stay tapped in and know what was happening. I say I choose happiness, but do I make that choice every day in my life for things that bring me joy and happiness? Do I take a sufficient dose of positivity every day? Or am I feeding myself that negative? Do I surround myself with people and events that are happy and joyful? Where am I refusing to take in life fully? Where am I taking in too much negativity and scary information? Hanging out with negative Nellies, right? We all know a few of those. So what are you choosing? Are you choosing happiness and joy or something else? As I look back over these last 3 months, and it seems like it's been a year, where were we in January and February? Where was our mindset? What were we thinking of? What were we doing in January and February? Were we panting and gasping for air? Or were we deep breathing and relaxed, peaceful and calm? Where are we today? Where are we today? What is our state of mind? If you remember, we did talk about mindfulness several months ago, and we said that it means being fully aware of all things in the present moment. Aware of all things in the present moment. And if you remember spiritual mind treatment, our basics, the first step is recognition, right? The first step is recognition. And that's recognizing that the infinite nature of spirit and the fact that God is, we are, everyone is, everything is in that one. We are all one. Everything is created from the same God stuff. And we hang out there. We hang out in that step. And I think this is the entire key, really, to understanding our teaching, is to really get at a cellular level, or embody, as Ernest Holmes would say, really get at that cellular level that we are one. All of us, everything is all one. There's no separation anywhere. We learn separation as children, don't we? We learn separation as children. You've probably seen the videos of the little kids that run to each other irrespective of gender, race, or anything. And, you know, the caption is, this is something that we learn, is this separation, this idea of separation. And I think it's true. We're a product of that environment. We learn about race and gender and political and all of those separate things as we're little children. And then some of us, as we become adults, we make different decisions. And we may go a different direction. We may choose a different political party. We may choose to look at race differently. We may choose to look at gender differently. But it is a choice, and we learn it in those environments. Now, I've been reading a little bit of fun reading this week, Bruce Lipton's The Biology of Belief. If you've read it, it's a pretty scientific book, but he's interesting in the way that he writes. And he talks about the intelligence of our cells. He talks about that. And I have long believed that every cell in our body has intelligence. It just has to. It just has to have its own unique intelligence, individualized and unique for what it does in our body. He says there's billions of cells in our body, of course. And if you think about it, it's a pretty miraculous thing. Our skin that holds all of this structure together is just a bunch of cells, isn't it? It's just a bunch of cells. And then underneath that, all of the different systems and everything that we have are just a bunch of cells. But they come together to make structures and to support us in the functioning of our body. And as I look at that and understand that, it helps me to understand our concept of oneness from the standpoint of we are all cells in the body of God, individualized and unique, just like our body cells are individualized and unique with its own intelligence. Some of us are brain cells, some of us are heart cells, some of us are the cells that eliminate waste. But hey, it's all important, right? It's all important to the body. And when we are working in harmony and cooperating, our bodies function well, life flows well. And when it isn't, we see conflict, dis-ease, both internally and externally. Internally and externally. So here we are, full of intelligent cells, all working together, a biological wonder. You ever think of your body as a biological wonder? Yeah, it really is. It really is. Let's add a little mystery called the mind. A little mystery called the mind. We know our minds are powerful, don't we? Our minds are powerful, and we see this demonstrated by understanding that what we focus on expands in our life. We've done tests in our classes about how that actually works. And we also know that what we think and believe gets reflected back to us. What we think and believe is what gets reflected back to us. And we also know that there is power in affirmations and how those work. All of that is the power of our minds, isn't it? All of that is the power of our minds. So when we can focus this power through the practice of mindfulness, which is being fully aware in the present moment, and spiritual mind treatment, which is affirmatively using universal laws, we can powerfully impact the experiences in our life. In spiritual mind treatment, as I said, the first step is recognition. And for those of you that have taken foundations with me, I teach that that's one of the most important steps. In fact, I think the first two steps of treatment are our most important. And when we start doing treatment, we hang out there a lot. We hang out there in that first step of recognizing that God is all there is. Really getting clear about that. Really getting clear about that. Feeling that connection. And savoring the deliciousness of that truth and just immersing ourselves into it. And I sometimes think of it as just falling backwards into a pool of consciousness and being supported and feeling calm and feeling amazing peacefulness and really being connected in the one. And if you remember, before we start our treatment, we have a purpose for that treatment. And that's, what are we praying about, right? What's the purpose of this treatment? What's my realization statement going to be? What's the purpose? So when I am hanging out in that first step that God is all there is and really, really getting that, at some point I begin to shift into, if God is everything, then I must be in that too. And the next thing you know, when I get unified, that's our unification step, when I get unified with that and I really feel it, guess what? Then I remember my purpose, and guess what? It's in there too. It's already in there. That's the realization. The realization is in the unification of the oneness and recognizing that whatever it is that we are praying for or about already exists, or we couldn't know about it. And once we unify with it, it's automatic that it manifests in our life. But we have got to get ourselves to a point of understanding, feeling the deliciousness of that unity in the one. Because what our stuff, our peace, our love, our joy, our healing, whatever it is that is the purpose of our prayer, is already there with us. That's the coolest thing about treatment, isn't it? Yeah, very cool. So using this idea of mindfulness to keep us fully present and aware in the now moment, not wandering off, but staying fully present in the now moment, can support us in our spiritual mind treatment in staying present to the realization, the recognition of the presence of God. That's the cool thing about combining these two processes, these two spiritual practices. Ernest Holmes, our founder and the author of The Science of Mind, tells us about the law of circulation. And we talk about the law of circulation here, and we usually talk about circulating our good and keeping the flow of abundance circulating. But it applies to our bodies, doesn't it? Our blood circulates. We have a circulatory system. We have our breath circulates, doesn't it? We can't just hold our breath, can't just breathe in. We got to circulate it and breathe out, and vice versa. So circulation is a universal law that applies to a lot of things. And what he tells us in The Science of Mind is spirit, which is the creative life principle, is forever flowing through us. But man has been given the power in himself to impede or stop its progress. We can resist it. We know we can tie a cord tightly around our arm and so inhibit the circulation of blood that congestion, stagnation, and infection will follow. In the same way, through our thinking and processes and our ideas and convictions, we use the tourniquets of negative thoughts and block the flow of the creative life through us. Are we allowing the tourniquet of COVID-19, the divisiveness in politics, race, and gender, and the negative influence of news and social media to block the flow of the creative life through us? I am choosing to remove the tourniquet of negativity in my life and allow the flow of the creative principle, the creative life of spirit through me now. My mantra this morning as I was in meditation just kept coming up. Love, joy, peace. Love, joy, peace. Love, joy, peace. That's for me. That's for me. I've had enough of us and them and all of the divisiveness and everything that's out there and all the different things. It's time for unity. It's time for we. I'm in for we. So let's look at some spiritual practices. The first one is just breathe. Okay? It's good for you. Lots of science and many practices out there about breath work for improving our state of being. You can find a lot of resources on the internet about that. If you want to wake yourself up, you breathe faster, right? If you want to relax, you slow your breath down and breathe more deeply. Deep breathing is one of the best ways that we can lower the stress in our bodies. And that's a pretty important thing these days. And it's because when we breathe deeply, we're activating that breathing pacemaker, I want to say pacifier, that breathing pacemaker, and it sends a message to our brains to calm down. Calm down. That's what they saw in the mice. When they tested the mice and they took out the neurons that caused the stimulation, they could put them in a brand new environment where they were usually very curious and sniffing around and doing everything. And they just relaxed and chilled out and groomed themselves, and it was all calm and cool. So they think there's going to be some health benefits to folks who struggle with overstimulation of the brain, some of the diseases of that and so forth. So kind of cool science that's out there. But this week, just remember to breathe. Just breathe. Anybody have a personal trainer and you start working out with them, and then what do? They tell you to breathe, all right? Because what do? We lock up when we start working out, and it's like, no, you need to breathe while you're holding that pose. Like, I can't breathe, it hurts. Yoga poses, same thing. Breathe. Number 2 is breath meditation. We usually start our meditations with, okay, everybody take a nice deep breath, right? And we're doing this to calm the body, to release the stresses that may be there, and to allow our bodies to relax and be an open and receptive place for the divine. Spirit speaks quietly sometimes, and us being calm and quiet is a way that we can hear that more clearly. So use some of your meditation time this week to focus on your breath. And when you notice that you've wandered from that, and trust me, you will wander, just come back gently and focus once again on the breath. And excuse me, number 3, mindfully pray. That's what we've been talking about this morning, is using the practice of mindfulness in your prayer work. Being fully present, aware of all things in the present moment. Bring your whole self into your prayer. Bring your whole self into the recognition that God is all there is and that you are that which it is. Bring yourself to that awareness. Bring yourself to oneness. And bring what you're praying about in there as well. Bring that all together. Be present to each step and feel it in your mind, body, and soul. Sometimes speaking it out loud helps because you're engaging some of your physical senses as well. If you need to, we've got affirmative prayer brochures in the lobby that you can take with you. So if you have believed all these powerful effects of breathing in the past, if you were a believer coming in, this science just gives us hard evidence that breathing can change our state of being. And that's pretty good news. That's pretty good news. When, you've probably heard the thing about if you're feeling down, look up. Because most people, seriously, when people are feeling blue, they have a tendency to look down. So if you make yourself look up, you automatically begin to feel better. So changing your state of breathing a little more deeply to calm down, breathing a little more energetically to energize ourselves. Yawning is a good thing too because it brings in a big bunch of air to us. So as you move through your week, I invite you to just remember to breathe. Just remember to breathe. I want to close with another quote from The Science of Mind this morning, and it is on page 243. It is written that the breath of God animates creation with the living presence of pure divinity. What breath are we breathing other than this true breath, unrestricted, flowing through channels of pure receptivity from the infinite intelligence and the perfect life of God? Let your thought dwell not on your breath or lack of breath, but on that which breathes. Sense the freedom of this God life flowing in and through you. You did not create the original substance out of which your body was formed. God made your body to be used as its own self-expression. This channel must be perfect. With good-natured flexibility, free your thought from any sense of anxiety or strain, or indecision, or deep-seated worry or concern, knowing that you have only to keep your thoughts steady and clear, fixed upon the potential perfection of the universe in which we live. And so it is. Yeah. Let's anchor this in a prayer this morning. Would you join me? Just breathe. Recognizing the peace that fills us when we take that beautiful breath of life, recognizing that is the God breath, the breath that filled Adam, the breath that fills us, the breath that sustains us. As we focus on that breath, just feeling the life within us, we recognize that there is one presence, and it is God. And all of it is here now through each of us, both in the room and those collectively gathered at home listening and watching, knowing that we are united in the wholeness and the oneness of Spirit. I speak my word for and about each of us gathered here to this day, knowing, claiming, and accepting the truth of who we are, that we are one in God, that we are united in the wholeness, that we are one. There is no us, there is no them, there is only we, the body of God, the cells of the infinite, the cells of the Most High, working together in harmony, in unity, in love, in joy, in peace, creating peace in our lives, peace on our planet, peace throughout all. I just anchor and sit in that truth for just a moment. Just breathe into that knowledge, that wisdom, that we are a unity, we are a one. We are whole, perfect and complete in our expression of life right here, right now. And I know for anyone that has anything on their heart today, as they lift that into their consciousness, into this prayer, that it is lifted into the healing light, the healing energy of spirit, into the collective prayer of this community, knowing that anything that needs to be healed is healed, revealed, that if circulation and flow are desired, that they flow and circulate now. Whatever the desire, whatever the need, whatever the purpose, we unite with it here now, knowing that it is done. And with a grateful heart, a joy-filled heart, I release this into the action of law and the activity of mind, knowing that it is done, it is so, and we affirm together, and so it is.